On one side, you have Fresh and Fit, the Fresh and Fit podcast. And on the other side, you have Abba and Preach. And what do you have between them? You have beef. You have beef between them. And when you have beef in these YouTube streets, there's going to be commentary, right, about the beef. It's going to be YouTube commentary about the YouTube beef in these YouTube streets. And one way to start having that conversation is about, well, first blood. Who started it? Who did the first strike? Okay? And that is what we're gonna use as a way to understand and to comment, etc. So while we know that the excuse of, hey, he started it, she started it, does not excuse subsequent behavior in the beef. It does not even assign ultimate responsibility to whatever the final outcomes of the beef is, right? I mean, we know that for sure, right, Dr. Polymath? However, it's still interesting. A good starting point, right? A good and interesting starting point is the kindling, the spark, first blood, who threw the first punch. So what do you have to say about that, sir?
Yeah, good point there. This is not necessarily what I think in sense of my conclusion, but one would argue, right, especially if you're fresh and fit, that they invited, or whether, Abba is one who suggested it, doesn't really matter, but they brought Abba onto their show, right, a couple months ago, maybe 3 months ago. And of course, this whole being some kind of space for men to, talk and discuss things, they thought that there was a bit of a camaraderie going on, right? So, so when basically they see that Abba made a video critiquing something that they said, whether you should pay for Pum Pum or not, right? And then kind of making, Myron and Fresh look like they're sort of hypocritical and not men of their own words. Of course, that can obviously feel bad for Myron and Fresh, because they're like, oh, hang on, we let you into our home. Whether you were the one who requested it doesn't really matter. They thought and felt quite genuinely that these are some partners and brothers. So why expose them out in the field like that? Someone could argue that Abba is the one who started the beef by putting the ignition source. Again, as you said, this doesn't mean everything else that spiral out of control is Abba's responsibility. That's totally different thing altogether.
Okay, so in your view, first action, the beginning of the story would be that. The beginning, perhaps the preamble will be, okay, there was a podcast where Abba showed up, right? And he did not, well, did the subject that you mentioned, right? The subject, because I don't see why disagreement of this sort should lead to beef. However, did the subject come up, and do you think that Abba addressing the subject afterwards, was enough of a cause for concern, consternation, beef, friction, right? Or was it just a typical, as we would see out here in the manosphere typically, oh, Mr. Fantastic says, oh, it's better to do this, and Bernard Riley says it's better to do that, right? Or somebody says, well, I do a mixture of this and the other. That's typical of any group.
Right.
So what went on here? What went wrong?
Yeah, just to kind of simplify what you just said, is simply this, right? It's the fact that Abba has a big channel, right? Abba and Preach, they have 1.4 million subscribers as of this current time, right? On the 18th of August, 2021. What that means is obviously the style that they do a quite logical critique of a lot of different topics, right? So when Abba then did that kind of segment, make it like a 15 or so minute video, specializing it on Fresh and Fit, it kind of puts light,
100%. There's a hierarchy here. When the big guy does something like that, it's significant.
Exactly.
If peers do it to each other, or if peers, or if it's shooting up, punching up, as they say in these politically correct streets, if it's punching up, it's okay, right? But specifically, so the thing about it is the audience as well, right? Because that brings in this whole aspect of why there's a hierarchy. We're talking about views, right? You said they have a bigger channel, right? You mean they have more subscribers, they have more views, they have an audience, therefore they have the whole concept of saving face or having a particular side that they wish to present. And this is how Abba defended himself, right? He said that this is about, or not defended, but he came out and said that this is about principle, right? And so on and so forth. But go ahead.
Yeah, let me come in for Abba. Abba is a very astute guy, right? This nigga right here is actually one of the smarter people I've seen on YouTube, right? And let me explain why. Myron and Fresh started showing some kind of stats showing that their channel apparently have 20 million views, while theirs only had like 15 or so million views or something. Some made up statistics, right? That don't mean anything. Abba and Preacher's channel are definitely getting far more views per video on average than Fresh and Fit's channel. Not to say that Fresh and Fit's is not so far behind, right? The point that they're trying to make is relevant relative to the 420 subscribers versus 1.4 million subscribers. The Fresh and Fit is actually getting quite a lot. But they made it seem like Abba and Preacher's channel is not getting more views. No, they're definitely getting more views, right? But Abba never touched on that. He never. There was a point in the video when Fit was saying, "We get more views, we get more," and the other one said, "We get more
None
girls."
of that really matters because
Right.
what the point is, one channel is bigger than the other. That's the point that is key here, right?
100%. But what I'm saying here is,
go ahead.
It's interesting that Abba never tried to defend himself because he's taking that stance of integrity to the end. He could have just literally said, "Yeah, my channel is bigger. We actually get more views as well." He just didn't say anything in that end. He didn't respond to any of the mudslinging. He just kind of stayed above board and said, "Yeah, you guys are out of line."
Oh yeah, there are of course many ways to fight this fight, and if you have a big channel, sometimes it's actually justified by your skill, right? So it may be a good index of his skill in handling this kind of a thing, right? However, let's take it back to, again, this is about first strike, the justification of the first strike being struck, and the, shall we say, the gravitas, the value that we assigned to the first strike. Was it enough to cause a conflagration, a fire, a storm, a bomb? But the idea is this: you have said that it's because a big channel took the time out to cut out a little segment, right, and say, "I'm going to go there." Okay, let's stay around that area. Let's stay around that area. Now, why is there any justification for Abba's point, which is just, I just have to be honest about this? I went back and I looked at everything that's been said, typically about, Fresh and Fit and so on and so forth, and my association with them. There's this one thing that keeps coming up, and I see it also in the comments and so on and so forth. It's this thing about pain or not pain. You know what? I have something deep in my spirit that tells me that I must state my principle here, blah, blah, blah. Is there any justification for that?
Well, okay. First of all, I think that question doesn't make sense. Justification. I think, and if there's any,
you know what?
Right, I know exactly what you mean. I know what you mean. Right. Okay, but the point here is, okay, look, there's a ripple in the space, and that ripple is felt by the Fresh and Fit, and they felt justified to respond to it. So no matter how big or small the stimulation, right, it occurred, and they responded to it. Now, to your point though, did Abba violate a bigger principle? Well, Abba doesn't feel that he is their friend necessarily. He doesn't feel that camaraderie, right? And I think Abba is the kind of person who would, in fact, if they were friends, not just come for someone like that. However, in Fresh and Fit's mind, they did kind of feel that there was a brotherhood that was brewing there, and they felt violated, as well as the fact that it's a big channel getting like 600K views on a video that's basically exposing them to be actually liars, because they're saying don't pay for box, and then you see what they're doing. One of them is on seeking arrangements, right? And of course, it exposed them nicely, right? Showing that hypocrites, and that's the worst kind of exposure. So the big channel and the fact that they felt that kind of camaraderie made them feel justified enough to strike. Now you could ask, was it overkill, right? So you strike back, you call another man's wife a beluga whale. I mean, it's funny, but it's wrong. And then you do other kind of stuff. You make some ape sounds and hands. Is it too much? Yes, at that point it is, because now you're attacking someone's personal life. It's no longer just a tit for tat using the same sort of expression. Now you're attacking a man's
context is
ability.
always important, but let me go ahead and point out just some more context here, right? That, for example, will it be justified, that beluga whale, I'm going to go all out thing? Obviously, if these were podcasts by comedians, okay,
Mhm.
Tim Dillon podcast versus the Legion of Skanks podcast, right?
I mean,
And
they're
these are
comedians,
real.
though. Abba and Preach are real comedians. So,
No, 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 no,
okay,
there's a totally different thing here, right?
okay.
Uh, by comedy slash roast comedy slash what, because this is what funny is for these, for a particular, let's just call it male humor, male base kind of humor. A lot of it is roasting other people, right? Talking crap, right? And sometimes deliberately taking stuff too far can just even be funny in and of itself, right? And but that's in that world, in that context, right? But these are not like, professional roast, because there are podcasts like this that exist that many people also listen to in terms of like comedy, and where it's okay to go that hard and so on and so forth. But you're saying that they it was not, all that was not, could that be taken in a comedic spirit, in other words, or no, they were being
No,
serious
no,
about the.
because well, you could see that Myron's one of Myron's veins was popping when you were saying it, right? There
Yeah,
was an
but he had a
actual
hat
sense
on
of
at some point or
violation. He
something,
felt
so
violated.
okay,
Yeah,
I got
he
you.
tried to.
I,
So
I,
yes,
I'm
they were
I'm
trying to
being I'm playing
make
devil's
it
advocate.
fun.
I'm playing devil's advocate there. I was just kind of, but my main point was that I think too that it was inappropriate, because there is also, in this particular roast comedy podcast that I'm talking about, one of which is Kill Tony, for example. Okay, and insert clip of Kill Tony here. In there, you can clearly see the difference, right? You can clearly see the difference, and also there's a level of skill and quality to it that justifies it, to use that word again, right? But you get my point. When it is so well done, then it's all, everything is welcome. Yeah, talk about his wife and his baby and everything. Please continue. You're killing. This is great. That kind of a thing, right? So in all those facets. Now, but if we come back to that whole thing about the hierarchy again, bigger channel and what they should do or not do, okay? What lessons can you say we can learn from this? So if you're a bigger person, in other words, uh, be and okay, so there are a couple of things that you said. Number one is that there was a friendship that was assumed, but it wasn't assumed on one side. A brewing, a burgeoning camaraderie or friendship or whatever partnership that is, in your perspective, seems to be brewing on one side, but not on the other side. Any lessons from that side, and how one should act in that regard? Plus, also this whole idea of, if you're in a bigger platform, what you do vis-a-vis smaller platforms.
Yeah. Okay. So I do think with a bigger platform, there is some responsibility there over what you say, because your words do carry a lot of weight. However, in this case, it's not necessarily that it's a bigger platform versus a smaller platform. It's the fact that it is just a big platform. Regardless how big Fresh and Fit was, it would have caused just as much ripple in this space, basically. So the issue here is that basically Abba's voice carries a lot of words. I mean, the guy's articulate, very intelligent man, and he says things in a way that even if you don't agree with this general conclusion, you see a lot of where he's coming from, and then that kind of starts to seep into people's perspectives. So basically, Fresh and Fit is about perception, how people see them. They've got the money, they've got some of the looks. They're going to the gym and showing all these things, talking to Insta thoughts, etc. And now being exposed that they're just technically paying for it too through different ways is what's hurting them. It's the fact that they're big, regardless of the size differentials between the two.
Okay, regardless of that you're big, regardless of the size differential. So when you're big, it becomes this added responsibility. So in any
Right.
particular area where you have advantage in your life, you need to watch out for that. Would you say?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and the thing is, right, it happens to be the case that Abba is very self-aware. The only way that they came on top is because he's very self-aware, right? If it was someone else, they would have probably engaged in the same thing that Fresh and Fit did, and they would both have lost this by losing subscribers and losing face. He only won through this because this man is actually pretty self-aware as an individual. So really, you have to be careful, right? Because the bigger channel has a lot more to lose in general, actually, because as you saw, people left 15K people already did unsubscribe from Fresh and Fit. Why? Because they saw the way that they carried themselves to be something that doesn't suit integrity. Like they acting like that, the veins popping, going too far. creating such issues, asking, Fresh and Fit, Abba and Preach to fight them, and not really going through with it as well. It's a lot. There's a lot of exposure of their own little ego problems, and the fact that, right, there's one part here, the alpha thing, right? People go to Fresh and Fit because some people think they're alphas. Whatever reason they have for that, that's what people think. Now, their behavior didn't seem to be so alpha, right? To be so offended by a video and then to go that far enough to start talking about people's personal lives in a way that a vein pops, that for some people can be seen as feminine energy. And all in all, I think it's going to blow over, right? Give it 3 more months. I think that the chance is going to start growing again because people are going to forget all about this. But I think it's a lesson for the rest of us to sort of learn is, if you're going to fake till you make it, make sure that you understand that you are playing a game and don't get caught up in your own character.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I was just saying, yeah, there's a skill. Number one, I think it's been implied in my whole stand-up comedy routine analogy, and knowing the context, the arena you're in, right? If you're in the Hollywood Bowl with the LA Philharmonic and you're playing the violin and it's Beethoven time and it's white tie time and that's what you do. And you use those skills, right? You don't all of a sudden go, well, I wanted to try out a BMX bike stunt in the middle of the stage, while you guys were playing your violin. It's like, well, I get it. I like BMX stunts too, but we were listening to Beethoven's Fifth or something, right? So for me, it's okay. Well, skill and knowing the context, because otherwise you may want to overreach, right? And let me just try and react this way, and then you're like, whoa, that just went horribly wrong. You don't know, you can't. The bigger you get, generally speaking, or the more consequential something is, the more you have to be cognizant of the scope that you're kind of within and how to act within that scope. I would say would be a lesson. However, we have to touch on this particular aspect, which is the aspect of the beef itself. Pay, not pay. Everybody pay. Blah blah blah. For me, there is a general kind of the whole category of that kind of argument is kind of uninteresting to me because it's not subtle and there is no maneuverability in it. All these particular things that people try to write simple equations for indeed have many more parameters and variables than are blah blah blah. You see what I'm saying? That is my whole kind of but what do you have to say about this whole idea of some people taking a stance, feeling the need to take a stance of don't pay, perhaps for that alpha image, and then other people having to say something else about it? What do you have to say about it?
Well, it depends. Are you asking me what I think about whether we should or shouldn't pay, or more the meta analysis of taking a stance and then having to
Yeah,
stick
you can
with it?
take either one. You can take either one.
Okay, well, I'll start with
Or
one of
both.
them. So, yeah, should you pay or not pay? Look, at the end of the day, it depends on your lifestyle, right? Everything depends on your lifestyle. Do you have the time to invest out there seeking peace leave out there? Do you have the time? I mean, some people like me, we have time, right? I can do it. I can do it. I got the time. But have you got time? No,
Me?
some of us just don't have the time, right?
Yeah,
So
me.
if that,
I've never had the time.
well, here's the thing, right? You can't start judging brothers on what they decide to do with their own money, right? With their own rods, right? That's weird. Even having the conversation itself is weird. If something is legal, you go do what thou wilt. The issue is there things that it will basically start to go in your soul and then start to ruin something? I don't know. This is the oldest profession in the world. I can't say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Talking about that money thing, especially within this context, is similar to kind of arguing with. It's like, oh, yeah, I never say I love you, but you should say I love you, or you should not say I love you. And I'm just like, oh, that stuff is all. What the hell are you talking about? Even it doesn't make any. These are not things that are open to discuss.
Oh,
You
right.
do what
However,
I will, as you said. Go ahead.
To give the credence to the argument and the logic Abba used and the logic that Fresh and Fit used is this thing is legal in many countries, and that's the issue Americans don't seem to have is They think the world revolves around America, right? This is legal in most European countries. It's legal over here, actually. So has it changed the society? Has it made it worse? Do women disrespect us? I don't think so.
Yeah,
All the arguments that was given.
That's all BS. Okay, because the thing about it, the whole fundamental of it, and we can kind of wrap up with this on our final thoughts here, that if you're taking care of the things that you should be taking care of as a man, which could be summarized by saying those things that apply to the Stoic outlook and Stoic philosophy, the mindset that the world is a place in which you can take action, you have a say, right? There are things you can control, there are things you cannot control, right? And not to have your own view, subjective preferences, so on and so forth, muddy up the waters. If you're doing those things, right, and you're taking care of your life in a particular kind of way, all these ancillary concerns will filter themselves out, not by magic, but by simply the fact that you're putting yourself through this mesh, this rubric, this system, which I just talked about, right? So the question, well, should I pay or should I not pay? It's like, dude, you're out here conquering the world.
Well, the thing is, you're always paying as well.
Like this, yeah, of course, as well. But these questions I find to be very, very, very dangerous, because when one addresses them as though they were legitimate, it confuses the people. Let's say some people watching this channel, as though that this was something that was integral or at all meaningful. That, I got to get this right. I got to make sure I get the answer to this question right. It's like, no, it is a meaningless question, because what you should be looking at is over down here, as I just described. And these things are ridiculous. So there's no, what's the right answer to it? No, it's a total distraction from beginning to end.
100%, right? Either way, you're going to spend, and like I said earlier, you really are always paying. Like for me, I spend a lot of time doing certain things, and that time I could be using to make more money, for example. That's me paying basically in my time. You literally pay for the dinner date, you pay for the house, which you're going to lose anyways when you get divorced. So you're always paying.
As I like to say sometimes, like, if I'm going to have dinner with or if I'm going to spend time with somebody, it's going to be to my enjoyment and to my liking. It's going to be to my standard. Right. Right? Therefore, there's going to be, I don't understand the whole, like,
but I do, before we drop off, I do get Fresh and Fit's point though. So Fresh and Prince, these guys, right? What they're looking for, what they're kind of doing is they're selling brothers the Disney fairy tale dream, which is you are going to be such a wanted man in this social sphere that it's going to be this magical attraction that's going to come from the other side. You have to get all these other things like money, fame, and status, etc. But forget about that. It's that there's a natural desire from the other end. It's more of that sort of purist sort of, you're playing in this social game, this tribal game that exists in Miami. The hot Instagram thoughts are going to come for you, and it's very natural, although the money and everything's there. If it's not there, they're not going to come for you. But they're trying to sell men the delusion or the fantasy of that natural, organic state. That's what a lot of men are watching to want. One experience.
So